Imagine if you would not lose any cognitive abilities, no decline at all, and modern science figured out a way to let you live 1,000 years.
You have an intelligent social species that has the ability to build on knowledge of your ancestors. So, one guy spends his life making the spear, the next guy spends his life perfecting how to throw it. And it's just, we have this unique ability to stand on this knowledge that's...
Let's show some of the images that you used in some of your videos, because it's pretty fascinating when you look at it. It's kind of undeniable.
The Joe Rogan experience.
It's just a normal part of being a person that lives in a current civilization, wondering what it was like in the past. And then when you see something like Egypt, you're like, none of this makes sense.
No, there's massive contradictions, and I think
it seems so old.
Well, it does, and I think what's made this, well, let's call it alternative perspective, much more possible, even plausible, is all of the adjacent fields of science and work that is basically providing a plausible context for these ideas that there was an ancient lost civilization that is responsible for the roots of some of the things we see in these civilizations, responsible for some of the technological enigmas that we find on these sites. And this is all stuff that's happened in recent years in adjacent fields of science, things like the extension of the human timeline, the evidence for severe erosion on these sites, our understanding of climate history and
the extension
and
of the
cataclysm.
human timeline is huge.
That's huge.
Because, Jesse Michaels and I were just having a conversation about this. I was like, imagine if you would not lose any cognitive abilities, no decline at all, and modern science figured out a way to let you live 1,000 years. Imagine if you're a person who's working on material sciences and you're doing like 3D printing. You get to live 1,000 years, and you're a researcher, and you still show up at work every day for 1,000 years or 10,000 years. That sounds nuts, but it doesn't. Because if you can extend life, for a very prolonged, especially with gene editing and a lot of the other crazy. Who knows if they already figured that out back then?
I mean, there seems to be some evidence that they might have. Because
what about the Sumerian kings list?
Well, this is a big part of it. Yeah, I mean, not just them, but almost every civilization that talks about, even the Bible, it talks about pre-Diluvian or pre-flood civilizations, often talks about people living for hundreds of years, if not longer than that, thousands of years. You have an Egyptian's kings list that does the same thing, but even in the Bible, Noah was 600, right? So you have, I think something like that. You have many examples of these, what they would describe as pre-cataclysm or pre-flood civilizations where people live for a long time. But there's an extension of individual human timeline, but we also know that there's an extension of the human, like how long humans have been here.
Right.
Right? Because that's going back further and further all the time. We have skulls and fossil record evidence now where it's just slightly more than 300,000 years. Genetic and studies into teeth morphology make the possibility open to, 700,000-800,000 years. There was a skull found. Yeah. I mean, I think that's more of a Homo sapien clade skull. So it's like it may not be Homo sapien exactly us. It might be a variety, but that's a whole other aspect on this too. Is that where the last humans left? Right, there were other types of humans that we know lived for, in some cases, a couple million years. Yeah, that had similar, like even bigger brain sizes than we did. We don't really know what their capabilities were. We only can work with ourselves, and then you combine that lengthening of time of like, okay, you have an intelligent social species that has the ability to build on knowledge of your ancestors. So, one guy spends his life making the spear, the next guy spends his life perfecting how to throw it. It's just we have this unique ability to stand on this knowledge that's passed down from our direct ancestors and therefore build up our capability, and it inevitably leads towards civilization. And if you stretch that way back in time, and now you look at things like the climate history and the history of cataclysm on this planet, this possibility that these civilizations may have arisen and then been completely destroyed at some point over the last several 100,000 years. You can't just dismiss that. There's a strong possibility that it's possible. And in fact, there seems to be a lot of other contextual evidence to support it in origin tales, in stories, in the echoes of sacred geometry and advanced mathematics and knowledge of the cosmos, and also planetary dimensions and geodetic data, and all this stuff that's encoded into these these monuments and into these stories and tales that we can't explain how these so-called primitive civilizations like the Egyptians or the Sumerians knew this information, yet it's there and it's encoded in their monuments and in their data. But we can't explain, even the Greeks, you can't explain the precision of some of the aspects of things like the pyramids. But yeah, I mean, you just, and again, with the cataclysms that we know have happened, the Younger Dryas just being the most recent, but if you go back several 100,000 years, you have these massive, interglacial periods and glacial maximum periods, right? That these cycles that we go through where you have this big glaciation buildup, and then you have just, these what must have been catastrophic floods, and then interglacial periods. In fact, there was a period called the Aeolian period. It was about 120,000 years ago. That was very much like the Holocene that we're in today. In fact, it lasted longer than the Holocene has currently lasted. We've been in the Holocene maybe 10,000 years, 11,000 years. I think the Aeolian period was more than 15 to 20,000 years, where it was stable weather. Sea levels were like 3-4 meters higher than where they are today, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't like it wasn't like the height of a glacial maximum where it's a difficult place to live. It was a calm period. I mean, the only reason our civilization is here today is because of the nice weather of the Holocene, right? We have warm weather. We haven't had like massive catastrophes that have been like extinction level events kind of thing to get in our way and knock us back to the Stone Age. There was a similar period like that lasted longer than we've been in this nice period, about 120,000 years ago. And if you consider after that the cycles of glaciation and flooding, then particularly the Younger Dryas, there'd been just almost nothing left. It's just the stone in places that survived what happened afterwards. So I do like my range of possibilities for, okay, when did these artifacts originate? Like, when did some of this architecture originally be built? It's not, to me, just 15,000 years ago. It could be 100, 200,000 years or even more. And again, more contextual evidence to support that is things like the erosion that we can see on some of these sites. One of my favorite topics in the last couple of years has been looking at the erosion on the Giza Plateau.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up.
And of some of the big monuments, in particular, like the whole Middle Pyramid complex on the Giza Plateau.
Let's show some of the images that you used in some of your videos, because it's pretty fascinating when you look at it. It's kind of undeniable.
It is, and what's fun about this is that we don't have to guess, right? We know how long it takes. Studies have been done about like limestone erosion. Turns out there's almost an endless number of conveniently dated limestone slabs all around the world. They're tombstones in cemeteries, right? So they get dated, they get cut, they get inscribed with the date when it was put up. And then so you can measure it, and you can come back over whatever decades and measure erosion. And so how long does it take for this face of this limestone erosion to recede?
This is the nutty stuff.
Yeah, and
because we're assuming that unless something happened to the outside of that this was at one point in time flat and smooth.
100%, because there are still blocks that are protected. So a lot of this has been rebuilt. This is tricky to see. So you can actually see that the less eroded sections are actually modern restorations, because this is so eroded that it's falling apart.
Right.
And this isn't even the exterior of this structure. This is the interior core masonry. All of this was also, for God knows how many thousands of years, encased in granite.